Writing is the type of skill that is easy to do but hard to do well. At its root, anyone can write anything. That's what I tell my students when I'm trying to get them to get out of their comfort zone and write something new. The only provision is that they need to be able to convert their thoughts into words and display those in plots and paragraphs. People are designed to tell stories, and from the beginning of society, we've always told stories. Whether it's Homer or your grandma at home, reminiscing about the good old days, everyone is a storyteller. Everyone is a story. By this point, every character archetype and every thematic plot has already been written. It is in the remixing of those oft-told stories where uniqueness is created. The archetype we're going to be looking at today is the archetypal mercenary. What's the first mercenary you think of in fiction, and are they good or bad? Depending on your personal life and experience, what media you like, and what you're attracted to, this is going to be a different answer, and it's going to determine your kind of framework working around the mercenary figure. Most mercenaries work within two categories. The mercenary with a heart of gold is the first, who always does what's right, and as the second, the mercenary with no redeeming qualities or personality, who only thinks of coin and nothing else. Within the sphere of gaming, these two types of mercenary show up a lot, and the morality of the mercenary usually follows one of these binaries. Think about it this way: if you want to play a mercenary in Fallout 4, do you have the ability to create a character with nuance, or do you have to play into one of these two mercenary categories? Anyone who's played the game knows that role-playing as a mercenary is going to pigeonhole you into that second classification. Today, I want to look at these two mercenary archetypes, and the games I'm going to dive into are Final Fantasy VII, as in the original, and the Armored Core series. What an odd combo of games to relate through this archetype, right? Well, look at it this way. What is Cloud Strife at the start of the game other than a mercenary? And what type of character do you play in Armored Core beyond a mercenary tied to coin? From this point out, we'll be talking about Final Fantasy VII and Armored Core in depth. Consider this your spoiler warning. In Final Fantasy VII, the first characters you're introduced to are Barret, the leader of Avalanche, an environmental terrorist organization, and despite how the sequel, Final Fantasy VII Remake, tries to lessen the terrorist aspect of Avalanche, they are technically a terrorist organization. And the second character is Cloud Strife, the merc with a mysterious past and a huge Buster Sword. Cloud was once a soldier, a specialized high-class military personnel for Shinra, the corporation that essentially owns the world. At the beginning of the story, Cloud is clearly only interested in money, as he clearly states that he'll only work if he's paid, and once the bombing run is finished, he plans to leave. Shortly after this, though, he begins showing his soft side, helping Tifa, Barret, and the rest without the promise of being paid. This is because Cloud falls into the first category of merc, the one with a heart of gold. This archetypal mercenary is the most common when we're supposed to like or empathize with the mercenary in question. Think of how Deadshot's character has changed from being a no-nonsense, uncaring mercenary into the caring father who's just doing his work for his daughter just within the past 10 years. It's almost treated like a prerequisite that mercenaries who we're supposed to empathize with must be morally redeemable in some way. Even though Cloud destroyed several Mako reactors over the course of the game, he is the good guy of the story because of his motivations for doing so, which is saving the planet, a very honorable goal. And as long as we don't take a second to think about how people are impacted by his actions, he stays morally squeaky clean. I am of course talking exclusively about Cloud from the original Final Fantasy VII and not the sequel Final Fantasy VII Remake, since in that sequel reboot remake, Cloud is even more morally acceptable since it is revealed, much to my chagrin, that Shinra is really the only bad people of the story, and it is their fault that Mako reactors blow up the way they do, killing thousands and perhaps millions of people. I say that this is to my personal chagrin because it makes the consequences of Cloud's actions in relation to his morality less severe. The remake gives Cloud a get-out-of-jail-free card for his morality, whereas in the first game, this is not the case. Characters need to be painted in hues of gray, just in general, but especially in the case of Mercenaries. Here enters Armored Core, with the first game releasing 6 months after Final Fantasy VII in 1997. In Armored Core, the morality of the mercenary is viewed differently, because the game adds a level of player choice and roleplay to the whole situation. At the beginning of this video, I defined mercenaries as falling into two archetypes, the mercenary with a heart of gold and the mercenary that is little more than a statement on selfishness. Final Fantasy VII is the former, and Fallout 4 is the latter, but somewhere in the middle, leaning more towards the latter, is Armored Core. You are a mercenary in the original Armored Core, one of the Ravens. In that game, you're given choices on which missions to take, and you've got to consider how much you're being paid when you choose to take one. That's all you have to consider if you want to fall into the second category of mercenary, the dogmatically selfish. But Armored Core is interesting because the player's moral code becomes the compass that directs the game, much like how our personal moral codes direct our behavior in the real world. Do you want to break up labor unions? Do you want to kill those people who are just trying to make a living wage? Do you not care for them at all? Or, and this is why I'm making this video in the first place, do you not want to kill them, but have to in order to move forward with the game? Do you have to sacrifice your morality in order to survive? That final question, do you sacrifice your morality in order to survive, is a one that applies to the real world. People have a history of sacrificing their morals to survive in the real world. Right now I'm reading Bloodlands by Timothy Snyder, which is a history book about the mass murder policies of Hitler and Stalin. And in that book, many average people perpetuate those policies in order to survive. The voices of the past are often silenced, and we'll never know exactly how many people did as they were told to survive and hated themselves for it, and how many people never cared at all. But within video games, we can know where we would personally fall. In the end, everyone is a mercenary. We all need to work to move forward in life. Sometimes working to live comes into contact with our morals. In Final Fantasy VII, the mercenary's morality is already written, and it's up to the player to judge, just like how we judge the peoples of the past for their actions after history is already written. In Armored Core, and I hope Armored Core 6 is the same, I'm not far enough to say yet, it is up to the player to write what type of person they want to be. And just like in history, half of their story will never be told, the half that considered whether what they were doing was right or wrong, because that part is a personal conflict, and just like the people of the past, we never had the ability or the will to put our thoughts to paper. It is only what we did that is left to judge us by. When you think about it, our lives function the way that Cloud's or the mercenary that's unnamed in Armored Core do. We are the product of our decisions that people who look retrospectively back on us will never know why we did what we did, but we do. And if we don't think about and include that stuff down, we'll never know where our morals lie and where the intersection of morality and our mercenary actions, our need to survive by getting money, intersect. So where do your morals lie? Are you the first type or the second type of mercenary? And with your life, what will you write? Thank you all for getting so far into this video. I loved making this, and I plan to make more videos like this in my Rail Says playlist. If you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment on this video. My goal for this year is to have 100 subs by the beginning of 2024, and I'd love for all of you to join me on my YouTube journey. I think that media is all translational, and I like to draw connections between media of all forms and the real world. If you think those connections are valid, this is the channel for you, at least this section of the channel. Thank you guys for watching, and I really do hope that you have a great day.